Hey, welcome back to Outbuilding. Today we're going to work on a project that has been going on for a few days out at the cabin. This is the pump building for the pressure for the house, or for the cabin. And it takes water from a spring. We have a natural spring that's probably a quarter mile away from here, is where the intake is, and we're going to go up and work on the intake today. But that intake has a pipe that runs down from there, buried in the ground. It comes down to this tank. And it's, roughly speaking, it's about 21 feet of drop from the intake down to here. So it's not a lot of pressure, but it's enough to fill this tank. This tank has an inlet, it's 550 gallons, and then it has an outlet, and so it sort of overfills and then dumps back in, and the creek kind of runs along behind us. The stream continues into a creek, and so it distributes any excess water into there. And we can valve that and turn it down, but this tank right now is got a lot of water in it, but it is not filling because the pipe has been pinched in a couple places. There's a couple holes in it, and the intake that you'll see has some missing pieces that we're rebuilding. We're building what's called a weir, which is like a dam, but it overflows. And so we're gonna go up and work on that, get started today. This is the pump building. I can show you inside of the pump, and then I'll back out and give you sort of a view of what this looks like from a distance to sort of get overall context. But we're gonna be working on the intake side of this today, and then work our way down the pipe over the coming days to get this restored. Okay, so this is the tank at the bottom of the pipe, and when I look at my watch, it says 390 feet of elevation. That's not super accurate, but I'll walk up to the head and we'll check what the altitude is up there and give you a sense of how far it is up to that spot. That's an intermediate tank, a 1,500 gallon tank that's not being used right now. It's just kind of dormant, but the pipe that we're following goes right around the base of that and then continues up. Okay, so here's our spot, and the altitude on the watch says 411 feet, so there's about 21 feet of drop from here to the tank. So I can introduce you to this basin a little bit. There's a rock wall you can see on the side here. It's about 2.5–3 feet tall, and it goes around to a point that it's blown out. That's the part I need to repair. Then it picks up there again and continues along. So I don't want to fill that basin. I'm not going to try to make this basin completely full, but I want to create a little weir across the bottom here that the water can overflow when it's heavy water, but that allows me to capture and get good clean water for the water supply. So the lighting here is kind of challenging, but you can see I've tried to get sort of the left-hand side of this cleared out, and I've diverted the water. I'll show you up above. I diverted the water so that it's primarily running over to the other side here. So I'm going to try to do one side and get the pipes and stuff in on that side first, and then get the water running through the pipes and switch over and patch up the other side. And I'll use a little bit of mortar mix and some stone to kind of build that up. So up above here, I just there was some random cinder blocks and stuff that was left probably from a previous version of this, and I sort of built myself a little diversion over, and I've got the little water's running. This is kind of probably the lowest point of the year, and it's running on the side here and off to the left. I'm not sure how much good it's going to do, but I added some plastic, I'd said in poly, just some scrap. So I put it in there and kind of try to increase the impermeability of that little temporary dam. All right, here's after 2 more bags of masonry mix. So I've got the output pipe, that 1¼ inch pipe on the side here. That's cemented in, and I'm starting to kind of lay up what I'm calling the dry side. The water's all diverted over to there right now. So we'll build this up and get it to the level. Those 2 big 4-inch pipes are going to be the intake, or the sort of overflow. And then when we get a storm event, it'll just come over the top of the weir. But for now, just gathering more rocks, and then filling in this area here and building that up. It's funny to think that somebody somewhere is paying an instructor to yell at them to do what's called the farmer carry in a health club. Seems like most things here on the coast are either overgrown, rotting, or both. And this bridge I'm walking across is definitely both. I'm filming this partly to show you where the path is, but honestly, it also gives me a break from carrying these bags. Here you can see going across this bridge. This purportedly used to be able to drive tractors and stuff across, but the elk have punched holes in it as they walk across, and the boards are just completely rotted out. So I'm walking carefully on where the supports are, and the supports are sturdy. They're treated and really huge, but the bridge deck itself is a mess. That'll be a future project. So the creek bed where the spring is so overladen with like trees and downfall that it's not really accessible to walk through easily carrying things. So we cut in this little separate path to bring in sandbags and mortar mix and the other stuff we need, and to collect the rocks from lower down in the stream. So it's a little bit of a beast of burden project. All right, I'm gonna take a break from carrying bags of heavy things for a minute and cut out the plastic. So I'm gonna use plastic to back the dam just so that it won't leak as much through the sandbags. Hopefully between the sandbags conforming to the shape of the bottom and the plastic, I can get a pretty good seal. The plastic's twice as long as it needs to be, so I'll just cut it down wherever I've got space. Okay, so I've got I got the dam all built over here, and now I'm going to plug the hole, and this will probably kind of go fairly quickly because the water's going to start infilling, and I'm hoping I get it up to the level of these and start running over the overflow. I'm going to probably spaz out a little bit while I do this to get it going, and so hopefully it goes well. this ready for when the water starts coming through. All right, we just about have them filled up. Dam is holding, but not super tight, but start seeing water come through the overflow. There it comes. All right, checking back in after a couple days away, and the dam on this uphill side seems to have sort of sprung a bit of a leak, the temporary dam. So there's a little bit of water running across the back and down and through, and then it's kind of running through underneath the dam here, which we're going to need to try to plug. But the runoff is coming out of the overflow pipes, so we'll patch this up and then keep working on building up the weir. All right, we're back at it after a few days away. The back dam, the temporary dam, seems to be holding up pretty well. The first time we came back, it was sort of compromised, but this time it's holding up really well. We've got decent flow coming out of the overflows and a little bit of coming out along the bottom of the dam, seeping underneath it. But we really just have a little bit more to do to kind of bring this up to the level. We're trying to shoot for a level that's higher than the intakes, which are on the other side of this brick here. Higher than the intakes, and then we can raise the intakes up. And then this is our little tube that the water supply will come from. We'll put a little screening filter on that. So today we'll just do one more bag and mortar mix and fill in the top of the dam here and get a good spillover so that when it is really running hard, it can just go over the top of that, and then it becomes a weir. Okay, so we got the weir pretty much topped and put some rocks and the cinder blocks that we were using for the temporary dam on the back side of the weir, so that when that overflows, it'll help it from just gouging out a big hole. We got the two overflows, and then our little intake is actually what would be our water intake's actually flowing now. And then I've taken out the temporary dam, put a couple cinder blocks in as stepping stones to go out and clean those intakes. And the intakes right now they're taking in most of the water, and it's shooting out the low side. And they seem to do a pretty good job of not clogging. So we've got the weir and kind of a dam all the way around, and it's probably, I don't know, maybe a foot deep at the deepest point. Here's the outputs. You can see the overflows are running pretty good. A little bit of snails growing in there, and I've got a cinder block that it drops on just so it doesn't gouge out a hole. And then that's our intake. The intake is up and over and in the dam, and I've got a rock sitting on top of it just to semi-cap it. But I've got about a third of the flow. That's an 1.25 inch pipe. So next I'll put a barb on that and start running my pipe out of here. So that'll be our intake for the water supply. And the weir is, tried to make it kind of have a low point in the middle there. And then we need to kind of probably do one more bag of concrete over on the far side just to seal up that far end if you get really big flows coming in. But it's holding water really well. All right, so I'm back at it today. I'm gonna try to work on the pipe. So the pipe needs to be sorted all the way back down to the tank, and the upper part here is sort of, we've sort of cleared out some of the stream bed of downfall and trees and stuff, and this is the old intake pipe. So I know there's a break in it not too far away, so I'm gonna cut it there, get a barb on here and screw it in and start working my way down. I'll put in a little valve system real soon so I can turn it off and on as I work, and also we can use that to purge the intake when we need to. But I'll start by just sorting. This is 1.25 inch pipe. It's pretty big, 160 PSI pipe, so it's pretty stout. I'll start working my way down this pipe and taking out breaks. And also there's a place where the elk cross and they're gonna puncture the pipe. So I'll put in some hard PVC to Schedule 40 there. So I'll just start working my way down. And as I develop pressure, as I go farther down, it should be easier to find leaks. They'll spring. But for now, I'll just start with this little segment that I know should be in pretty good shape and look for leaks as I go. hopefully you can see all this all right. I have left my tripods at home, so I have a cinder block for a tripod today. So one problem I'm going to have is the water is still running out of what is going to be the intake up here. So I've got a rock on it now to slow it down. I'm going to put a little riser in on top of it to stop it for now, just so that I can get things hooked up. And then later I'll remove this because I'll have a valve down below to control the water flow. So that's not perfectly, well, it's pretty close to perfectly stopped, so that'll work for now. Okay, so I found a really good stick to kind of plug the end of the pipe, and I've opened up the valve up on top, and I've got one little riser here after the air cleared out. So I got to cut that piece off, kind of walking my way up the pipe and seeing what the rest of it looks like. And I've got another little spring right up at the top. But other than that, it looks pretty good. So I'll cut off those two sections and keep working my way down. All right, so I've got that pipe reattached with the two holy pieces removed. And I'll open up the valve and purge that. It's pretty muddy because it has, I don't know how long it's been since this thing's been actually in use. So it's going to be pretty muddy to start with. So clear it out. And then once it gets cleared out, I'll plug it up here. We'll see if we got any other holes in it. The rule of PVC is you never have the right pieces, but I found that stick, and that stick is going to be awesome because without it, I wouldn't have a way to plug the pipe up. So I'm still going to need to make a run, but I can make some progress here while I'm sorting out the pipe. That section checked out okay, so got about 20 feet down and about the rest of the quarter mile to go. I say that jokingly because there's actually quite a bit of space that is buried in this good shape. So I really have just the part in the riverbed here to get cleaned up. So the next piece I'm going to put in is going to be some valve body stuff. And there I don't have the PVC for it, so I am going to need to run out and grab some parts. But at least I might check the next piece of pipe and see what kind of pipe I have to work with. Black poly pipe. This is 1 1/4, and I noticed farther down it's 1 inch, and I've got a whole bunch of 1 inch. I've got 100 feet of 1 inch that I can add in. So this stretch here is where the elk I think they crashed down. There's a sort of a game trail here. They crash down, and then they walk and go around the corner and head up. And so while I'm going to be heading down the riverbed, I think I'm going to put the PVC pipe in section, the PVC hardwall in here, so that if it does get walked on by the elk, and then we may kind of improvise a different trail, because this is how we walk around to get to the dam. But in higher water, you have to walk through quite a bit of water, so we may improvise a different trail around. But for now, and then I do have to stop every once in a while and look at how beautiful it is here, because it's amazing to be working out in this environment. It's 100 degrees, 102 degrees or something like that back home, and here it's 70 degrees and just beautiful out and no smoke in the air. So it's really super nice. Okay, a little progress report after having had some lunch. Went and got some parts, and I'm back down here now, and I've got the pipe moving along. I've got my hardened loop there, kind of where the elk will go, and then on underneath that log and down beyond. I put in this valve here, or set of valves actually. There's one valve. This one I can open up to flush the intake if I ever need to, and I can close that off to shut the downstream side. And then I can switch them, and then I can run water down. So I can either close it entirely off here, I can
flush it, or I can regulate the stuff going down towards the tank. And then moving along down here through the log, and then it's going to switch to 1-inch pipe. It's 1.5 inch right now, or 1.25 rather. So it'll switch as I move my way down there. So I'll move down there and work on the next segment. All right, so I've walked the whole way down and I can see the pipe the whole way, and it looks like it's probably okay. So I'm going to try to reconnect it to the 1-inch pipe. So I've got the 2 ends here. I've got the part that I still have to resolve, and then the part that has been fixed. I'll try connecting these here just temporarily and see if I can get it to, if the lower part is actually good to go. Down at the bottom there's a valve I'm going to go open up so that it can potentially flush and come out down there. And if that doesn't work, then I'll like split it in the middle and see if it's good to that spot in the middle. But I'll get this hooked up. Okay, so the pipe goes underneath that log, comes down and joins at this junction here where it switches from 1.25 inch pipe to 1-inch pipe. And then gladly, I went all the way down to the lowest point before it climbs up to get to a tank. I'll show you that in a minute. And the water is discharging there just fine. It's through the 1-inch pipe. So I'm just going to seal this up and then move down and put in another little valve manifold down there, and making really good progress. All right, so I'm down in this lower spot, and the creek comes along and it goes along, and you can kind of see hopefully see the black pipe there. And then it reaches a spot where I've just cut it to figure out what's going on. But there's a valve here, and I'm gonna put a whole manifold in here because it goes here and it climbs a hill. It climbs a hill probably 6 or 7 feet, and so I think sediment's going to collect here in the base. And so I'm going to put a little sediment clean out down here with valves going in every direction so that we can control which way we blow it out, going either way. And then it should be pretty clean up to the tank up above, but I need to walk down and get some 1-inch pipe to build up that manifold. And it's kind of crazy. I heard a crash earlier when I was first getting here, and I think this tree may have just fallen down today it was nothing related to what we were doing here. It's up on the bank there, but it definitely did just recently fall down. And then I should show you another tree, which is like my favorite tree, and I can't impress upon you how big this thing is. It's an old growth Douglas fir, and it's just ginormous. The base of it here is probably, I don't know, a dozen feet around in diameter, something like that. So it's a really impressive spot here. And the pipe from all the way up on top, where, you know, way up this way is where the intake is. It's probably dropped, I'm going to guess 12 or 15 feet to get to here, and that's going to climb up that hill and then go up to the tank. Pretty neat spot. Okay, I got this manifold put in, so I've got a little 3-way valve where I can turn the water. Got kind of a drop leg, which is sort of for sediment. Hopefully that catches some of the sediment and I can just blow it out by opening up that valve. I can close the uphill side or I can close the downhill side, and then I can use the gravity coming from both directions to help clear it out. So I'm gonna go open it up and see if I can clear it out up to the tank up above. So this is pretty exciting. I'm up at the upper tank, and I've got a nice steady flow coming out of there. That's that 1-inch pipe. I don't have a valve in there. I just have it cracked open. And this is where there's a much larger 1,500 gallon tank that's not in the system right now. I don't know if we'll use it or not. We may move it and use it somewhere else, but I can go ahead and close this up. And I know I've got down in the ground here now, I've got the last piece to figure out, which is there's a broken pipe in there. And I think it's probably pretty soon in here. I used air pressure from the below side some time ago and pushed water up to here, and it was leaking out of the ground right here. So there's a leak right underneath the ground here. I'm gonna have to dig that up and try to find it. But then that pipe runs down and out this little pathway all the way down to the cabin. So a video of me digging wouldn't be very interesting, but I did learn a little bit so far. So what was sort of the input for this tank is not plumbed properly. It's out of the loop completely, and I see now that there's a second pipe running down adjacent to the pipe I've got my source coming from is here, and it goes and it snakes into a 4-inch like just drainage pipe, probably to protect it, because it's pretty shallow as it heads out that way. And I've got, I don't know, 12 feet dug up. It's probably a 20-foot pipe. So I'm guessing I'm going to get to the end of that and then pull it apart and see where the break is and be able to repair it. but I'm taking my overalls off because I'm getting hot digging, and I'm moving faster now because it's getting shallower and I'm getting out of some blackberry roots. But it does make me wonder how they had this bigger tank plumbed at one point. They may have used it as a backup reserve tank, and then had a valve to basically fill the lower tank from the bigger one when they needed it, but not really sure. Well, I made pretty good progress today. I'm really excited about getting the water up to this big tank because I know from here, somewhere inside this white pipe is a break, or the joint is loose or something. And because when I blew compressed air from the low side, I had water coming out of the top of it, bubbling out of the top of this white pipe. So somewhere down in here there's the poly pipe is compromised. This white pipe's probably not a bad idea because it's really pretty shallow here. It's probably only a foot deep, and this will get mushy in the winter. And if I'm driving a tractor or a vehicle back here, it could squish the poly pipe. So I'll probably keep that and sleeve it like it is. I'm not sure quite what that other second pipe is going along there. I'll try to figure that out later. And I was all excited. I got to what I thought was the end because I found a coupling that I thought was the end because there's a coupling on the end up there. But I got down here and it was just another joint moving onto another pipe. So I'm gonna take a break. I'm done for the day. I'll come back and hopefully keep going and find where that pipe ends, and then I can slide new poly through there or fix that poly or do whatever I need to do. So, productive day. I'm tired. It's a lot of digging, but it's moving along well. Okay, got back out here another day and started digging again and made it another 13 feet down the pipe. Pipe keeps descending and going lower and lower, so now we're down to about 2 feet deep. And I thought, well, it's probably a 20-foot segment, so I measured out 20 feet and found the pipe again with a joiner in another segment. So then the question is how long does this pipe run? It might run all the way down the road. So then I started thinking a little bit maybe smarter and came back to the start. So I know that when I put compressed air way down at the cabin, it pushed water up through this white tube and out the top where the black poly pipe was. So I know the poly pipe's broken in there, and I actually yanked on it. I got smart and yanked on it. It turns out it was broken about a foot down this pipe. So in some ways I didn't really need to dig that out, although now I know what all that conduit does. So now I'm gonna cut. I've dug myself a space here. I'm gonna cut the white pipe and hope that I just had a missing joint here right at the end, and that's where the failure is in the poly pipe underneath. But I can at least inspect this and see what that pipe looks like and see whether there's poly pipe running down below, and hopefully just make the repair right here. All right, I'm back today. It's foggy and overcast. I got here nice and early, and it's actually kind of drippy out in the woods. So just to bring myself back up to speed, I'll go through this again. I started with a system that months ago I had pressurized from below, and I have this white pipe with a piece of poly. The poly is coming from the source up the hill, and now I've got that all restored. So when I put the pressurized air in when we were inspecting the cabin, I put pressurized air in the bottom, and a bunch of water came out of the top of this pipe, which was buried right up near that tank, and then continued down this trench that you're viewing now. So I pretty much figured that the water, or the tubing from the cabin, which is about 700 meters down the hill, was in good shape all the way up to this point. And then I assumed that this poly pipe was being just protected by this white pipe, and this white pipe kind of crosses what is essentially a roadway here. And so I assumed that this white pipe was protecting the poly, and that the poly had a break in it or a separation in one of the joints. So then I figured I'd come and I'd dig out the white pipe, find the other end of it, and then pull the poly and figure out what's going on. I dug for about 30 feet. It got deeper and deeper. That's the trench you're sort of viewing through. And it just keeps being segments of this white pipe. So I don't know how far it goes. It may go 600 feet. It may go 2 more feet. I don't really know. But without digging a whole lot more or bringing in a backhoe or something, I'm going to change plans. And then I thought, well, I wonder if I can just pull this pipe out and see how long it is where the break is. I pulled it out and it was literally like 6 inches of space. So somebody had just stuffed the intake into this white pipe. I'm not even certain I'm relatively certain because of the pressurized air that is connected up to this white pipe. So I'm assuming the white pipe, however far it goes, it has integrity, and it's just a solid pipe because this is kind of a roadway to protect things. And so my plan is I cut the pipe a couple places thinking I'd find any poly in there, but I didn't. So I'm going to put the white pipe, this white piece back in, glue it in, and then I'm going to put a proper barb on the end of this and
reattach the supply side, which is up the hill, and see if I can't get a little bit of pressure to push through and make it down to the cabin. There may be a couple hills in there and it may need a siphon effect to get going, and so that may be part of what's going on. Before I do that though, I brought the compressor back and I'm gonna repressurize from the cabin with air and see if I get the water coming out of here, just to verify that this seems to be holding water or air and is in good shape before I glue everything up. So that's my plan today. I'm gonna first pressurize it, double check this. If that works, I'll restore the white pipe and start sending water down with a little bit of pressure and see if that's not all it takes, just to get that over any kind of hump or anything and get a siphon effect going. I think once it starts drawing, because I've got 21 feet of differential, it should pull water pretty easily from the intake. That's the plan. All right, so I got my compressor hooked up, got it charged into the downside of the tank, and then I'll turn on the compressor with the breaker, and then I got to zoom up a quarter mile just on foot and see what's coming out the other end. And so I'll grab the camera and run up there and do that.
All right, I ran up here and it's pretty encouraging. We got water coming in and you need to glue it in and see if that does the trick, but I think we're on the right path. You can hear it surging and gurgling in there. Used a little bit of PVC Legos here to put together a reducing set down to the barb that'll pick up the poly pipe. That was just stuffed in there before, and so this will make much better pressure seal. And then I've got one more of these valves I built, a valve set, so I can direct the water either down or discharge to clean out. And I'll put that up just where my source pipe is here. I'll tap that in there. All right, so we got our supply side coming in. It goes through this little three-way valve, which right now I've got opened up to discharge to here so I can flush it out. And then it's closed off right there, but it continues over, goes through the little reducers, down the pipe, and on down the way. So now we're gonna give it a try. All right, so we're up at the top here, and I've got a rock on the intake that I'm gonna reach. That's just to block from insects or rodents or whatever getting in there. So the valves are closed off, but that'll be the intake there. I'll put a screen on that eventually, but that's ready to go. It's underwater. So now I'm down at the first valve set, so I can open up this and just flush out the line from above. Make sure there's nothing in there. And then close it off and open it down to the downstream side, which runs down and down the creek. All right, so now I'm down at the intermediate, so I can close the downhill side and open up my flush. There we go. And then flush out the line from above. And then close that off and open it up to the next stage. All right, we're back up to where I started today, and it's flushing out. And so once that's ready to go, I can close off the clean out and we'll see what happens here. And start sending it downhill. This is very promising. I think it's filling up that tube. We'll see if it picks up some steam if it fills up. That's pretty awesome though. A little bit dirty, so we want to be able to flush this tank out. Okay, after letting it run for a little while, it sort of plugged up, and so I've been filling the tube up with water and then running it back up with air and getting pretty muddy water out. So I think I'm just cleaning sludge out of the line. It's taken a little while, but after pushing air up and letting sort of dirty water come out a few times, I finally have a really good flow going. So I'm gonna let it run for a little while. I might back charge it a little bit a couple times again, just to try to clean the line out as best I can. And it's kind of burping air out of the line every time I do it too, so that the flow increases each time because the siphon starts to kick in. Also got a garden hose here hooked up that I just ran down the field. I'm using that to just take some of the water's pretty dirty in here from all the junk in the line. So I'm going to redo this manifold out here. This is the once it fills up, this will be the overflow, and I'm going to build a little valve so I can kind of run stuff out the overflow and also drain the tank and shut things off. There's nothing really set up down here, so that'll be the next project, is just to kind of clean up this manifold on this end so that I can better control and flush the tank. But I'm super excited. It's running well, and it'll fill the tank. Well, I'm going to do some other work and see how long it takes to fill the tank. So I got everything tucked back in, reburied the trench, and kind of cleaned up. And when we get a tractor, we'll clear out the pathway here and kind of build in a little road, or restore the road. And but for now, the water's set up and passing through, and we've got control valves to manage it. All right. Well, my schedule these days has me out here once a week, and so I'm back out a week later. The tank filled fully over the week and then kept cycling, and it really kind of cleaned up, but there's a lot of sediment in the bottom from all the stuff that came out of the pipe, so I want to get that cleaned out. So I'm going to work on both ends of the pipe today. I'm going to try to get the sediment cleaned out. I'm going to replumb this so that I can both flush the tank and bypass the tank and drain the tank and do all that sort of stuff, because right now there's really no controls for doing anything other than shutting off the supply to the pump house. So add that in. I had a siphon tube in here overnight. We got here last night, and I threw a siphon tube in here and drained the tank, and so it's empty now. And there is a little bit of sludge in the bottom. So I'll get this plumbed up, and then I can sort of slosh around that stuff and then cycle it out and discharge it. And then on the intake side, I want to screen that entry, and so I came up with this little hack. I had this old perforated aluminum screen, and so I built a little false bucket. I'll drop that over the intake and hopefully have that be submerged, set this lid on it, and then put a rock on top of it. And that should allow the water to go in without any sort of leaves or anything getting in there. And then I'll put a finer screen around the actual intake, but this will be a good start. And then to clean it, I can just pop this off and reach in and mess with stuff underneath here, and then put it back and throw the rock back on top of it. That'll probably evolve over time. We'll see how that works this fall with leaves coming in and stuff. So it was interesting overnight, or while I was gone for the week, there's a bunch of paw prints up here and stuff. And I think the bear that lives in the area here was kind of curious about the water in here. And something got up on here that was big enough to climb up on here and leave mud all over the place. Didn't get in or mess with anything, but it was just kind of interesting. And so I'll probably do a time lapse of putting these pipes together, get this thing flushing and refilling, and then run up to the intake side and get that done. And that'll kind of wrap this project up. All right, I got a plan. Unfortunately, I don't have the right parts. It's always kind of the way, like I said, it goes with PVC. This piece came out, and I need to kind of replace this valve and stuff. Got close, but don't quite have either the right combination of tools or parts. Tools to take this apart, parts to replace it. So I'm going to run out and grab what I think is the rest of it. I've got the rest of it laid out. All right, after a couple trips, well, one trip to the hardware store and a bunch of mistakes that I was able to recover from, I've got the input here coming in. That's from up the hill, and right now I got it shut off, so I can open this one up and fill the tank, and then it'll drain down through here, which is open, and go out to the discharge. So that's kind of how it was originally set up. I can also, though, close this off and just bypass the tank entirely. And so that would allow the water to come in and just go over and down and out. That might help with the siphon or something like that. So that's kind of nice to be able to do that. And then I can also shut off the house supply so that if I'm working on the pump or something, I can just close that off so the tank output here can be shut off. I can also discharge the tank to the output. And so if I want to flush the tank or clear it out, I can fill it with water from here and then flush it out down here without having to like siphon it out of the tank. So hopefully this all holds water, but I'm going to go ahead and set up the intake side and see how it's working. And then that should kind of conclude getting the water supply back to the tank. I still have to work on the pump and sort of the inboard side. I broke one piece of pipe that was old and they had the wrong kind of pipe in there anyway. So I'll work on the pump house next. Okay, back up at the intake now. And I'm hoping that I got this thing about the right height. So I put a little slot for the pipe to fit over, and it looks decent so far. It needs to go down a little bit. I'm gonna take my shoes off here and square it up. I need to get a couple rocks out of there, so I'm gonna take my shoes off and dip in there and clean it up. All right, well, that's filling now, and I'll fill it up a few times and clean it out and siphon it out and kind of vacuum it out. I did end up breaking the pipe that goes into the pump house, and the pump needs some work anyway. I think it might have frozen at one point, so it's got a minor leak in it. It's probably just a gasket that's blown, so I'll pull that out and bring it home with me and see if I can't clean it up and bring back. They had used they used DWT, the drain water pipe, and I'm using Schedule 40 here, and so it was pretty brittle and it just broke on the elbow going into the pump building. This is one of the outbuildings here. There's another, that's kind of the rat-infested outbuilding. The cabin's in the back there, and that's really the namesake for these videos is outbuilding info. We got this property. It took us about a year to purchase it, and in that year I spent some time learning how to do videos. We did some projects like the Jeep, which we're sleeping in now because the cabin's not quite ready for that. We did the trailer so we can bring things around, and a bunch of other projects around the house to kind of learn video and stuff. So this is one of many videos I'm going to hope to do about projects surrounding this cabin and other things that I'm working on. It's a really amazing place. We're just kind of learning. We just went down to the discharge where the water goes out and found a whole different area in there that we'd never even been to yet because so much of this is overgrown. It's been sort of neglected for years. So we're slowly peeling back the layers. We've got a water supply now. Just to be clear, we're not using this as a drinking water supply. This is just for our septic system and for cleaning and things like that. We just bring in our own potable water for drinking and for cooking. There is an old wellhead here, so we'll probably restore that and use that for drinking water in the long run. This water is actually really clean, but with so many animals, there's elk, there's bear, there's all kinds of things around here. And so there is coliform in the water. So it's fine for cleaning, it's fine for using for the toilet and things like that, but we'll get other water. I really appreciate you watching these. This is really fun to put together and fun to share this with people that maybe have heard about this in family and friends that haven't been able to come out and see it. Look forward to having you watch other ones. If you'd like to find out more information about them, please subscribe. If you like this, I think it helps some sort of algorithm that makes me famous or something like that. Please, thanks a bunch. Take care.